Imagine being shot twice by a burglar, once in your stomach, the other shot narrowly grazing your ear. You are able to somehow wrestle the weapon away. You use the attacker's weapon against him, shooting him once in the chest, stopping the attack. And you get arrested for attempted homicide? Well, if you can imagine that, then congratulations. Maybe you live in New York City where this actually is happening right now. We're going to bring you the details on this shocking case. My name's Tom Grieve. I'm a former state criminal prosecutor, criminal defense attorney. Let's get into it. So I need to stress right off the bat that this all took place on Sunday, April 2nd at about 5:30 a.m. at a parking lot in New York City, just near Madison Square Garden. Since this is so fresh and since I'm bringing it to you so early, these facts, of course, are all subject to change. But for right now, what we know is that at about 5:30 a.m., a parking lot attendant, 57-year-old, and I apologize for any mispronunciation here, Mr. Moussa Diarra, saw a man peering into a car window in the parking garage where he worked, as I mentioned before, just west of Madison Square Garden at what we think is 340 West 31st Street. Mr. Diarra approached the suspicious man and asked him what was in his bag that he was carrying. Now, if you are new to crime, then allow me to enlighten you that burglars who are looking to break into cars and homes often carry a bag or backpack with them to contain not only certain tools of the trade, but also, of course, a sack or a way of carrying their ill-gotten loot and gains. Now, again, the facts here are a bit hazy at the time of recording since this all just happened. It appears that Mr. Diarra approached the man, the possible burglar, suddenly pulls a gun from the bag and appears to have shot Mr. Diarra twice, once grazing his ear and the second time straight into his belly, straight into his stomach. It is unclear at this time whether Mr. Diarra was grabbing for the gun at the time that he was shot. Curiously, by the way, I wonder how that weapon even existed in New York City and Manhattan, because as we all know, New York City has a very stringent concealed carry law, which of course in practice only ensures that victims are disarmed, not the bad guys, as we once more see here. But on with the facts. Mr. Diarra successfully wrestled the firearm away from his assailant and shot him once in the chest, ending the attack. Both men were transported to a local hospital where they are reported to be in stable condition. Mr. Diarra and his attacker are both appearing to be held on attempted murder charges. The alleged attacker, 59-year-old Charles Rohde, was also charged with attempted murder, assault, and criminal possession of a weapon, burglary, according to police. So let's get to some analysis here. Now, of course, legal analysis needs to start with the law, and specifically we're looking at New York Penal Code 35.15 up on your screen and linked in the description box below. The relevant portion reads in part that a person may not use deadly force upon another person under circumstances specified in subdivision 1 unless A, the actor reasonably believes that such other person is using or about to use deadly force. Even in such case, however, the actor may not use deadly force if he or she knows that with complete personal safety to oneself and others, he or she may avoid the necessity of doing so by retreating. And it goes on from there, but here's the bottom line. New York has a duty to retreat law. Right. Is this all starting to come into focus now? So again, if you can reasonably believe that you can get out of there with complete personal safety, then you have a duty to retreat. You may not use deadly force. That's a basic plain English definition. Now, of course, duty to retreat at the opposite end of the spectrum, we have stand your ground laws where it is far from a license to kill because you absolutely do have to show the fact that you were in reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm. Again, that specific formulation will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, so check your local listings. But once more, here in New York State, as well as a handful of other states, we do have a duty to retreat while in public. So the issue here, if the DA does elect to move forward and seek a conviction on this, is that from the district attorney's perspective, once Mr. Diarra took possession of the weapon, he should have immediately retreated because obviously The deadly threat was over. Never mind the fact that you've just been shot twice, including once in the abdomen. Now, on a bit of a side note, I actually have a long-term research project where I've been reading a couple books and articles where I've been researching the history of duty to retreat and stand your ground laws, both in the United States, the colonies, as well as in England. And I plan on sharing those with you in a video coming up. If you want me to fast track that project, however, let me know in the comment field below. Be more than happy to do that. Now, of course, New York State is not the only state with duty to retreat laws, and of course, duty to retreat laws are not the only instance of, on paper, what some think are good ideas lead to disastrous outcomes like potentially this one. Now, as one reporter overheard a cop snarling, people like Alvin Bragg, that's the prosecutor, have made this city unsafe. And this worker is a victim of defending himself. Why would a cop say something like that? Because the cops know that weak prosecutors who are looking to stick it to victims and handcuff law enforcement themselves often embolden criminals. Don't believe me with duty to retreat laws? Then take a look at an example of, for instance, the city of Milwaukee, where I'm from, which did something similar but albeit different some years ago. You see, someone had the great idea on how to make the city safer by prohibiting the police from chasing bad guys who just committed crimes. After all, they reasoned, police chases, they can be dangerous, and we don't want danger. So the city must be safer if we end police chases, right? So how do you think that played out in reality? Right, pretty much exactly like how you're imagining. What happened is what any cop or person with even a half ounce of common sense could have told you what would happen. More bad guys started to drive crazy to get away from the police because they knew that the police had a, quote, no chase policy, end quote. This further, of course, can lead to emboldened criminals, not only to drive crazy to escape from law enforcement, oftentimes at insane speeds down busy residential neighborhoods, but further encourage those same individuals to go out and commit more crime in the first place, knowing that they may not have to suffer much in the way of consequences because they may not get caught. Now, of course, years after the retirement of the insane no chase policy in Milwaukee, I'm still told that residents continue to pay the price for that stupid decision, as there's now a culture of fleeing that's been built into this generation of felons and bad guys. And so it turns. And so it is too when policymakers, which district attorneys effectively are, either intentionally or unintentionally, when they aggressively prosecute victims who are just trying to defend themselves. Maybe this fact pattern will turn and Mr. Diarra will not look like such a victim or good guy in a few days. As an example, maybe he took the firearm away and chased down his attacker and shot him in the back, for instance, which would be a violation in virtually every single state that I'm aware of. Because again, if the bad guy attacks, you have to stop using deadly force. We can only use deadly force to stop a deadly threat. I know some of you out there in Texas may be saying otherwise, but for most of us, that's what it is. But none of that appears to be the case right now with respect to Mr. Diarra. Instead, we have an aggressive prosecutor using an anti-victim duty to retreat law as an excuse to charge the good guy with attempted homicide. And again, that's the way it looks right now. Do you think that this charging decision is going to help future victims? Do you think that any of this is going to serve to save lives? Of course not. And the cop who made that comment about this particular prosecutor not doing anything to make the city safer and actually hurting victims has it spot on. As one online commentator put it, in part, quote, "The purpose of Alvin Bragg, the DA, charging a victim like Moussa Diarra is to send a message that New Yorkers shouldn't fight back, that we should sit tight and accept crime," end quote. I should add to that too, that you should sit tight, and if someone's attacking you and it just shot you once in your abdomen, hey, you're good to go. If you get that gun and if he's still attacking you, and again, we'll see whether or not that indeed turned out to be the case, but apparently you shouldn't use deadly force because after all, deadly force can only arise from a firearm. So if you take the bad guy's firearm away, obviously the deadly attack is over, right? Guys, if you'd like to see more videos like this where we discuss individual acts of crime, please let me know in the comment field below. I realize it's not something we do a tremendous amount of right now. As always, and of course, with all things YouTube, please consider liking this video, sharing it around on social media, and subscribing so that you do not miss any of our future content. Thanks very much. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.